I've been wrestling for years with a simple question. And it really is simple, and it's one most of you have probably wrestled with too at some point or another. That question and my asking it is central to my work in science and spirituality, and yet I've been stymied by it. The question is, what are my religious beliefs? My religious communities are several, and I like it that way. Each one provides a different something to my experience of life, but all of my religious communities are big tent communities and don't really answer the question. For example, being a UU gives me a place in a community of religious oddballs, but we're all odd in different ways, right? And somebody asked me that dreadful question, so do you believe in God or not? It just doesn't work to answer, I'm a UU. It's a non sequitur. It's a dodge, right? I might as well say, I'm a plumber. I'd like to have a word or a phrase that means what I mean. What do I mean? For me, it often hinges on ambiguity. My friend Linda wrote to me asking for help. She's not any kind of wacko and is not especially gullible or flaky, so I was fascinated by her description of what happened. Now, this is a really long quote, so it's all her writing, speaking, until I say, end quote. She writes, I wonder if you could help me understand from a more scientific view something that I experienced. I was walking the Camino de Santiago in Spain, and I was wondering if at the next town we would meet up with my grandson. As we were coming upon the town, an abandoned town high in the mountains and isolated. Now this is going to sound strange, and I have never experienced anything like this. A shaft of energy came from above me and went through me. I hope you will stay with me. It is hard to describe, but it was an energetic force, like a big shaft of light from the sky without the light. I could definitely feel it. It didn't hurt, and right afterwards, I thought my grandson was there, and he was. It was hugely tangible, this force. There was no denying it, and I was very aware. Have you ever heard of anything like this, or could explain what this could possibly be? I have had many spiritual explanations. It was so strange that I still wonder what it could be. Thanks for listening. End quote. Notice how tentative Linda is in describing this experience to me. She expects me to laugh at her. But she already had spiritual explanations, apparently none of them satisfying. Now some of you are now doing what people usually do, which is jumping to conclusions that fit your pre-existing worldviews. Some of you might be thinking it was a hallucination she had. She was dehydrated or something. It was a visit from angels. It was a sign from God. It was a portal to a higher dimension. It was a mild stroke or some other temporary neurological problem. Maybe she was having an LSD flashback, and so on. I say there is only one fully authentic answer that I could give her. Here's what I wrote in reply, and this too is a long quote. Linda, direct experience is all we ever have to work with. Each of us has to make sense of the world as we experience it. And sometimes we try to fit the experience into a worldview that doesn't allow the experience to be as it was. Don't let anyone detract from or alter your memory of this. I have heard others speak of experiences like this. My suggestion to myself as well is to just let it be, just as it was. Any explanation from anyone can only diminish it. I say take it on face value as a mysterious, uplifting experience that was real and needs no explanation. Instead of trying to force it into a label, focus on how it felt and what the experience means for you right now, today. I think when we take the numinous and ineffable and try to use language to describe it, what was an expansive experience gets filtered through our culture's narrow filters, whatever culture we're from, and that process necessarily corrupts it. Try to remember it without words. Feel the sensations you felt then in that moment, and try to carry that wordlessness through the next few hours or days, and just see what happens. If you want my thoughts on what it really was, the only honest answer is, I don't know. I believe you that it happened, that it was real and tangible for you, and I believe it may be important. I've just learned that too much thinking can ruin experiences like this. End quote. People familiar with my work know that science is bedrock for me. I try not to believe in stuff that there's no evidence for. Even then, when there's a lot of evidence for something, I try to take it on as a contingent belief, not a certainty. The stronger the evidence, the more confident I am. But I try to remember that new evidence could come along and shake everything up. Some might say, but that means you don't actually believe in anything. Well, if belief means unshakable faith immune to new evidence, then yes, there is nothing I believe in. All knowledge is conditional. All certainties are chutzpah. To believe in something unshakably, completely untethered from experience or evidence, is to disconnect oneself from reality, from evolution, from the flow of life. Conditional belief is like a boxer's stance or a Tai Chi movement, always flexible and responsive, never settled or seated in a position. This is the essence of science. It's also pretty unusual for humans to actually live that way fully. I'm still pretty much an apprentice of it myself. We humans like to know, or at least to pretend that we know. Another of my religious communities is the Religious Naturalist Association. We define ourselves like this, quote, this is quoting from the website, religious naturalists take nature to heart. We hold a naturalist view of how things are in the world and also see ourselves as religious in non-traditional ways as we absorb the wonder of being alive and the order and beauty of the cosmos. We ask, what is and what matters? Seeking answers from natural rather than supernatural sources, end quote. In short, most religious naturalists are atheists, including me, sort of. You'll see. In my discussions with other people in that community, I'm sometimes frustrated by a dogmatic adherence to materialism that I think is a little too quick to dismiss personal experience that's ambiguous or hard to explain. Like Linda's, like my own. For example, I am and have long been personal friends with the grandson and great-granddaughter of Edgar Cayce, the famous psychic. I met Edgar Cayce's son, Hugh Lynn, when I was a young man working at a summer camp run by the Edgar Cayce Foundation. The foundation was organized in 1931 to research and explore ideas found in Edgar Cayce's psychic readings. Ideas like reincarnation, pyramids, astrology, Atlantis, dream interpretation, and a whole lot about diet and health. Now, if you're a science-minded skeptic like me, you may already be doing the eye roll and surreptitiously searching for the exit. It's right back there. I get it. Edgar Cayce's psychic powers were thoroughly debunked while he was still alive in the 1920s. By debunked, I mean that the skeptics demonstrated that a clever shyster with knowledge of stage magic and just enough rudimentary medical vocabulary could do everything Cayce did without any help from supernatural sources. If not for my personal knowledge of the Cayce family, that'd be enough for me. I would just conclude, nothing to see here, and move on. But I know these people well. They're not hoaxers. They're good, kind, honest, sincere people. So on the one hand, my science orientation puts me squarely in community with skeptics who dismiss all of this as fraud at best and dangerous pseudoscience at worst. On the other hand, I know these people. They've dedicated their lives to sharing Casey's life and work, and they're certainly not getting rich from it. To be clear, I do not expect anyone to believe in Atlantis or reincarnation based on my assertion that Casey's descendants are sincere people. I don't myself. So, what do I believe? That Edgar Casey tapped into some supernatural library of eternal truth? Or do I side with the skeptics, sure that it's all so much hokum and naivete? Though it may seem irrational and contradictory, I choose both, and neither. I choose both, and neither. Here's why. I don't believe for a minute that every aspect of the natural world has been discovered by science, or even that all the relevant categories of force and energy have been discovered. Could there be some natural channel by which Edgar Casey could learn or know things he had no obvious way to know? Well, my most thoughtful atheist friends would say, possibly, but my bet is on no. Less thoughtful ones would indignantly retort, Poppycock, even though it was a yes or no question. My answer is, I don't know. And beyond that, I know I don't know because I can't know, at least not yet. This is key to my message this morning. Less than 100 years ago, Werner Heisenberg showed us that because of an inherent ambiguity in the nature of subatomic particles, we can never know both their position and momentum with any precision. That's not quite right. It's not that we can never know both the momentum and position of a particle, it's that the particle doesn't have both a precise position and momentum. The two quantities are mutually exclusive. When a particle's speed is measured precisely, its location in space smears out to fill the entire universe. When you nail it down to a precise location, its momentum becomes a superposition, a stack of an infinite set of values. It becomes an infinite group of numbers rather than a single value. Confusing, right? Well, this bizarre bit of knowledge came about in response to the question, are these subatomic particles objects or waves? Well, even though the two concepts are mutually exclusive, as in they can't possibly be both, they're completely different ways of being, they are somehow indeed both. But they can only express qualities of one or the other at any given time. The position and momentum of quantum particles are known as complementary variables because you can know one or the other but not both at the same time. You can treat particles as objects or waves but not both. They are both somehow, but the two models are incompatible. This condition is called complementarity. That term, complementarity, is relevant to my quest for a religious descriptor. Coined by Niels Bohr, the father of quantum physics, complementarity is defined by ambiguity and paradox, by incompatible opposites that are both simultaneously true. This idea that two opposing, conflicting, mutually exclusive ideas can both be simultaneously true has some weird implications. For example, you may have heard of Schrödinger's cat. Schrödinger was trying to illustrate how ridiculous the probabilistic nature of quantum theory was, and his parody of it became an enduring scientific quandary. He described a sealed box in which random quantum events, such as a uranium atom emitting some radiation, would trigger the poisoning of a cat using like a Geiger counter or something. After a period of time during which the atom has a 50% chance of emitting the radiation, the cat would be simultaneously both alive and dead because the atom both emits and doesn't emit the radiation until it's observed. that radiation, the uranium atom, exists in a superposition of both states, emitted and not emitted, dragging the cat along with it. Opening the box to look triggers quantum collapse, as it's called, collapse of the superposition, and the cat would, at that point only, instantly become either alive or dead. Until someone opens the box, the cat is thought to be simultaneously both alive and dead. This is complementarity. And we Westerners are either-or people. All of our logical reasoning is founded on the very simple and obvious notion that if A and B are incompatible, then either A is true or B is true, or possibly neither is true. If A is true, then B must be false. And all that beautiful either-or logic has served us very well, because it has brought us to discover that we actually live in a both-and universe. The words wave and particle are either-or names for both-and phenomena. Both and includes and surrounds either or. Both and includes and surrounds either or. Just like the word people includes and surrounds the words friends and enemies. This is a both and universe with a few either or neighborhoods. It is uncomfortable not knowing what subatomic particles actually are, or whether it's a cat or a corpse. We like certainty. It's why so many of us are so uncomfortable about androgyny and they, them, theirs as singular pronouns. We want to put our knowledge in boxes. We don't enjoy having to make whole new boxes, like for the singular they. But we can do it. Complementarity is knowledge that will never fit in any imaginable box. Accepting complementarity requires serious personal discipline, discipleship, contemplative practice. Complementarity evokes concepts like paradox, crazy, strange, impossible, mystery. Seems like we may now have strayed into the territory of mysticism. That's okay with me. In an interview with Krista Tippett, Nobel Prize-winning physicist Frank Wilczek said this about complementarity and the nature of quantum particles. He said, quote, "Sometimes it's useful to think of it one way, sometimes it's useful to think of it another way, and both can be informative in different circumstances. But it's very difficult, in fact, impossible, to apply them both at once." He goes on, that's the essence of complementarity. You have to view the world in different ways to do it justice. And the different ways can each be very rich, can each be internally consistent, can have its own language and rules, but they may be mutually incompatible. And to do full justice to reality, you have to take them all into account. End quote. Sounds a little bit like Unitarian Universalism, doesn't it? Another Frank Schaeffer, in his book, get this title, Why I Am an Atheist Who Believes in God, writes, quote, "With the acceptance of paradox came a new and blessed uncertainty that began to heal the mental illness called certainty." End quote. It may help to know that Schaeffer is the son of famous Christian televangelists. He goes on, quote, "These days I hold two ideas about God simultaneously. He, she, or it exists, and he, she, or it doesn't exist. I don't seesaw between these opposites. I embrace them." End quote. Sound familiar? In physics terms, Schaeffer's holding these two complementarities in superposition, like waves and particles, applying one or the other as needed to live a fruitful, satisfying life, but not trying to force his reality into one box or another. I aspire to the same. For a while I called myself an agnostic, but agnostic literally means not knowing. And for me, that just felt a little too indecisive. I am not agnostic about whether atoms or light are made of particles or waves. I know that they are paradoxically both and neither. Both and neither. And that everything in my life and much of the universe is made of this same odd paradoxical stuff. Even here, it's not an unshakable certainty I'm talking about, but it's clear enough to base a worldview on, as certain as the round earth and the kinship of life. Let's call it quite certain. Similarly, I'm quite certain that there are fundamental aspects of nature yet to be revealed by scientific investigation. It's possible, though not likely, that some of those aspects might allow for phenomena we would regard as supernatural or paranormal today. I am not agnostic about it because I do know. I know that I don't know, and that other people's experiences are different from mine. Complex. Ambiguous, hard to explain. Joseph Campbell says, "He who thinks he knows doesn't know. He who knows that he doesn't know, knows." I'm happy to accept Joseph Campbell's seal of approval. Like Schaeffer, I am an atheist who prays. I do not believe that an intervening supernatural deity will hear my prayer and violate the laws of nature to my benefit. I pray because I hear it, and it affirms my highest values. Does prayer work? If you're praying for a new Mercedes-Benz, I'm quite certain it does not. Quite certain, not completely certain. But as a vehicle, get it? Vehicle for reaching into my own subconscious and steering it towards my highest ideals, well, it works for me. God grant me the serenity to embrace the ambiguities I cannot resolve. So asking, so do you believe in God or not? It's like asking what color the yin-yang symbol is. It's not actually a binary question, although it's often posed as one. Answering it honestly requires nuance, for me at least, but also, I think, even for the dogmatic extremes. Which God? With what powers? By what standards? There's nuance there. It's not a simple question. I am a complementarist. Please be careful not to confuse me with complementarians, because that term refers to religiously defined gender roles, where men are the rightful heads of their households because Bible. I thought I had invented the term complementarism from complementarity, but in preparing this sermon, I Googled it just to see, and I found the following on a page at Rutgers University. Quote, "Complementarism is the philosophical framework constructed on the basis of the postulate that the principle of complementarity formulated by Niels Bohr in quantum physics can be applied to biology, philosophy, and religion." End quote. That's the actual description of an actual course titled Complementarism, a science-based philosophical framework for integrating irreconcilable opposites. Turns out I have a tribe. As the basis for a worldview, I think complementarity offers guidance for many social issues. If an electron can be both a particle and a wave, then surely a child can be both male and female. An immigrant can be both an American citizen and speak their first language. A biracial child can be both white and black and not have to explain herself to anyone. And I can be both an atheist and deeply religious. I think this approach offers a kind of deep humility that's sorely lacking in society and in politics as a whole, not just here in the U.S., but worldwide, especially these last few months in Eastern Europe. A little bit of humility needed there. I am a complementarist. My theology is embracing the paradox of irreconcilable opposites that are nevertheless both true, or at least both helpful. I'm an atheist who prays, a New Age skeptic who's more interested in your experience than my explanation of it. My God is nature's nuance, and my spiritual practice is to live fully embracing that, starting with my perplexing fellow humans. So go ahead, you can ask me if I believe in God. I'll probably remind you that creation itself is deeply ambiguous. I might say, tell me about the most puzzling and mysterious aspects of your beliefs. Where do they contradict themselves? Where do they defy explanation? Because that is the happy crossroad where your path and mine join. So be it. Amen.